2022, a bombshell announcement shook the foundations of rock and roll. Mick Mars, the legendary guitarist of Mötley Crüe, was stepping away from touring after 41 years. As fans processed the news, questions swirled about the man who had stood in the shadows, wielding his guitar through decades of excess, drama, and unimaginable pain. But the real story of Mick Mars goes far deeper than a simple retirement. It's a tale of suffering, resilience, and a battle that began long before anyone knew his name. For over 4 decades, Mars had hidden a devastating secret from the world. While his bandmates made headlines with their wild antics, he was fighting a private war against his own body. Every night, he would step onto the stage, strap on his guitar, and deliver blistering solos while enduring excruciating pain that would have sent most people to the hospital. As Nicky Sixx, the band's bassist, later revealed, none of us knew the extent of his suffering. He never complained, he just played through it all. But by 2022, the toll had become too much to bear. The man who had helped create some of rock's most iconic riffs was facing his toughest decision yet. Yet this wasn't just another rock star retirement. As the dust settled, shocking allegations would emerge that would tear apart one of rock's most notorious bands, revealing a story of betrayal, courage, and the true cost of rock and roll glory. This is the story of Mick Mars, the silent warrior of Mötley Crüe, and the battle he fought in the shadows of fame. Early life before he was Mick Mars, he was Bob Allen Diehl, born in 1951 in Terre Haute, Indiana. Far from the glitz and glamour of the Sunset Strip, young Bob spent his early years moving between Indiana and California, his family searching for stability in the economic turbulence of the 1950s. By age 9, he had already found his calling when his parents bought him his first guitar, a simple acoustic that would set him on a path to rock history. But the road to stardom was anything but straight. Throughout the 1970s, Mars bounced between bands in the California music scene, playing in forgotten groups like Whitehorse and Vendetta. Living out of his car at times, he supported himself with factory jobs while chasing his rock and roll dreams. Despite the struggles, he was developing a unique guitar style that would later define Mötley Crüe's sound. In 1980, everything changed when he placed a now legendary ad in The Recycler, Los Angeles local music paper. Loud, rude, aggressive guitarist available. The ad caught the attention of bassist Nicky Sixx and drummer Tommy Lee, who were forming a new band. When they met Mars, they knew they'd found their missing piece. When Mick played his first riff for us, Sixx later recalled, Tommy and I looked at each other and knew this was it. He wasn't just another guitar player, he had an edge, a darkness to his sound that was exactly what we needed. With the addition of vocalist Vince Neil, Mötley Crüe was born. But even as the band began its rise to infamy on the Sunset Strip, Mars was harbouring a secret. Strange pains had begun to plague him, initially dismissed as the result of wild performances and hard living. Little did anyone know these were the first signs of a condition that would haunt him for the rest of his career. The transformation from Bob Diehl to Mick Mars was complete, but his greatest challenge was just beginning. As Mötley Crüe prepared to take over the world, their guitarist was starting a private battle that would test his limits for decades to come. The Hidden Battle. In 1983, as Mötley Crüe was exploding onto the national scene with Shout at the Devil, Mick Mars received news that would change his life forever. Doctors diagnosed him with ankylosing spondylitis, AS, a chronic inflammatory disease that would gradually fuse his spine together. For a rock guitarist known for wild stage moves, this diagnosis was potentially career-ending. But Mars chose to keep his condition private, even from his bandmates. I kept it to myself because I didn't want to be treated differently, Mars later revealed in a rare interview. This was rock and roll. Nobody wanted to hear about disease and doctors. They wanted to see a show. And what a show he delivered, night after night, even as the pain grew increasingly unbearable. The condition progressed relentlessly through the band's peak years. While Mötley Crüe dominated the charts with hits like Home Sweet Home and Dr. Feelgood, Mars was secretly visiting specialists between shows. His spine was slowly calcifying, turning his vertebrae into a solid column of bone. The pain was constant, but Mars developed techniques to adapt his playing style, never compromising the fierce sound that had become his trademark. During the recording of Girls, Girls, Girls in 1987, the pain became so severe that Mars could barely turn his head. Studio sessions that should have taken hours stretched into days. Yet somehow, he managed to lay down some of his most memorable guitar work. Producer Tom Werman later commented, "I never knew how sick he was. He'd come in, plug in and nail his parts. No complaints, no excuses, just pure professionalism." The contrast between Mars' public and private life was stark. While his bandmates made headlines with their notorious partying, Mars spent his offstage hours in physical therapy and doctors' offices. His only relief came from rigorous exercise routines and meditation, a far cry from the stereotypical rock star lifestyle. By the early 1990s, the disease had caused Mars to lose almost 3 inches in height. His movements on stage became more restricted, though few fans noticed, mesmerized by his masterful guitar work. "The music was always bigger than the pain," Mars would later say. "When I played, something else took over. It was like the disease couldn't touch that part of me." Through countless tours, platinum albums, and the band's ever-growing success, Mars kept his battle private. His resilience became legendary among the few crew members who knew his secret. As one roadie put it, we'd watch him barely able to walk to his dressing room after a show, then somehow summon the strength to do it all again the next night. He was the toughest person I've ever met. Height of success. By the mid-1980s, Mötley Crüe had become one of the biggest bands in the world. Their 1989 album, Dr. Feelgood, shot to #1 on the Billboard charts, and they were selling out arenas worldwide. On stage, Mars was delivering iconic riffs on hits like Kickstart My Heart and Same Old Situation. But backstage, his private hell was intensifying. While Tommy Lee and Vince Neil graced magazine covers and Nikki Sixx's near-death experiences became rock legend, Mars retreated further into isolation. His condition was worsening dramatically. There were nights, a former tour manager revealed, where we had to literally help him to the stage. But the moment those lights hit, he transformed. It was like watching someone flip a switch. The band's notorious lifestyle wasn't helping. The constant travel, late nights, and physical demands of performing were taking their toll. Unlike his bandmates' substance abuse struggles, which were public knowledge, Mars's battle remained hidden. He developed his own coping mechanisms, special chairs backstage, heating pads between sets, and a rigorous pre-show routine just to make it through each performance. "Everyone had their demons," Nikki Sixx would later write in his memoir. But Mick fought his alone. While we were partying, he was suffering in silence. None of us really understood what he was going through. The isolation was profound. As the band reached new heights of success, Mars's world became increasingly confined by his condition. Stadium shows presented particular challenges. The cold air in outdoor venues would seize up his joints, making every movement agony. Yet fans never suspected. Music journalists praised his stoic presence and mysterious persona, unaware that his stillness on stage was a necessity rather than a choice. By the time the band headlined the 1991 Moscow Music Peace Festival in front of 1.6 million people, Mars's condition had progressed to the point where he could barely turn his head. Yet he delivered one of his most memorable performances, proving that his spirit remained unbroken even as his body betrayed him. The contrast was stark. While Mötley Crüe lived up to their reputation as the world's most notorious rock band, Their guitarist was living an almost monastic existence off stage, focused solely on maintaining his ability to perform. His dedication to the music never wavered, even as the physical cost became increasingly severe. The breaking point. In 2004, after years of managing his deteriorating condition, Mars faced a crisis that could no longer be hidden. His hip, ravaged by decades of ankylosing spondylitis, had completely deteriorated. Surgery wasn't just an option, it was a necessity. The legendary guitarist, who had played through unimaginable pain for decades, was finally forced to confront his mortality. The hip replacement surgery was a complicated procedure, made more challenging by his condition. The doctors told me I might never play guitar standing up again, Mars later revealed, but I told them they didn't know what kind of fighter I was. The recovery was grueling, forcing Mars to relearn basic movements while the band's future hung in the balance. During this time, the true extent of his condition became public knowledge. Fans were shocked to learn that their guitar hero had been battling this devastating disease throughout his career. The revelation added new meaning to every performance they'd witnessed, every solo they'd memorized. The surgery marked a turning point. Though Mars returned to touring, his condition continued to progress. The spinal fusion that had been creeping up his back for decades was now affecting his cervical spine. Simple movements became increasingly difficult, yet he pressed on, adapting his playing style and stage presence to accommodate his limitations. By 2015, during the band's final tour, the toll was visible. Mars's height had decreased by several inches due to his curved spine. His movements were more restricted than ever, but his guitar work remained impeccable, a testament to his unwavering dedication to his craft. Watching Mick push through every show was inspiring. A crew member from the final tour noted he'd be in absolute agony, but the moment he hit the stage, he transformed into the same fierce guitarist he'd always been. The music seemed to give him strength. The physical demands of touring became increasingly impossible to manage. Even with a modified stage setup and countless medical interventions, each show extracted a devastating physical toll. Finally, in 2022, Mars reached the breaking point, but the announcement of his touring retirement would spark a controversy that no one saw coming. Legal battle. The rock world was stunned in October 2022 when Mötley Crüe announced Mars's retirement from touring. But what seemed like a dignified exit soon erupted into one of rock's most shocking betrayals. In April 2023, Mars filed a lawsuit against his bandmates that exposed the ugly truth behind his departure. The allegations were devastating. Mars claimed he was being forced out of the band entirely, despite only stepping back from touring. His bandmates allegedly attempted to strip him of his voting rights and profits, effectively erasing his legacy. When Nikki Sixx publicly questioned Mars's playing ability, the typically quiet guitarist fought back, releasing recordings that proved he could still perform. The lawsuit revealed deeper issues, including allegations about the band's use of backing tracks and attempts to drown out Mars's guitar in the mix. After 41 years of loyalty and dedication, to be treated this way, it's heartbreaking, Mars's attorney stated. The battle played out in courtrooms and media, tarnishing the band's legacy. The man who had fought through decades of physical pain now found himself fighting for his very place in the band's history, proving that sometimes the greatest betrayals come from those closest to you. Legacy. Despite the bitter legal battle, Mick Mars's impact on rock music remains undeniable. His innovative guitar work helped define Mötley Crüe's sound and influence countless musicians. From the iconic riff of Kickstart My Heart to the blues-infused solos of Home Sweet Home, Mars created a signature style that perfectly balanced rawness with technical precision. Beyond his musical contributions, Mars became an unexpected inspiration for those battling chronic illness. His decades-long fight against ankylosing spondylitis while maintaining a demanding career proved that physical limitations don't define one's potential. As his condition became public knowledge, fans dealing with similar challenges found hope in his story. Fellow guitarists have consistently praised Mars's technical innovations. His use of the Kala tremolo system and unique effects combinations created sounds that became staples of 80s metal. Mick wasn't just playing guitar, he was creating soundscapes, noted Tom Kiefer of Cinderella. Today, as Mars fights for his place in Mötley Crüe's legacy, support has poured in from fans and fellow musicians alike. His resilience, both in facing his health challenges and standing up for his rights, has earned him newfound respect. While the future remains uncertain, Mars's place in rock history is secure. If you've enjoyed uncovering the true story of Mick Mars, rock's most resilient warrior, make sure to join our community by hitting subscribe. Ring that notification bell and drop a comment with your thoughts on Mars's incredible journey. Until next time, keep rocking.